Hey everybody, this is Jen, and I am here with you today to share a scrapbooking tutorial using the February scrapbook kit and some of the add-ons here at Studio Calico. I was really inspired by the watercolor pattern paper in the main scrapbook kit. This pattern is called Sea Glass, and on the back is also a lovely green color, but I've really been trying out a lot more mixed media lately and been having fun with watercolor, and so I thought I'd just show you quick how to make a background using some watercolors and gesso. So what I have here is just a sheet of white cardstock. This is originally a 12 by 12 sheet, but I just cut it down to 8.5 by 11, and then I also have some gesso. So I'll leave a link in the post if you'd like to pick some of this up. I believe they do have some in the shop here at Studio Calico. This was just some that I had gotten from the art supply store quite a while ago. It's the Claudine Hellmuth brand white gesso, and this is what I like to use preferably if I'm going to watercolor on cardstock. If you're using actual watercolor paper, that kind of paper is thicker and it's meant to take on more moisture, but the type of cardstock that we use for scrapbooking is thinner and it's really not designed to take on a lot of water. And so what the gesso does is it basically creates a barrier between your watercolor and the cardstock so that any paint or moisture that you put on top of it, it soaks into the paper a lot less than it would normally. So what I'm going to end up doing here, and you'll see it as the video goes along, but I'm going to do the watercolor packaging technique. So I have some Prima. These are the Classics watercolor set, and I did get them in the shop here at Studio Calico. This is a really great set, and it's probably the best set of watercolors that I've had since I've started scrapbooking. I've tried many others. I've tried just some generic brands, one that I got at Michael's, and then another that I got at the art supply store, but this has been my favorite so far. It comes with, let's see, 12 different colors, and then it also gives you this little palette down here that you can mix colors in if you'd like to. The great thing about these watercolors is that they're very saturated, so they are more pigmented than the cheaper watercolors. And typically when you're looking at watercolors, you know, the higher priced or the better quality ones have a higher pigment than the lower quality ones, and these actually are not pricey at all. So check those out if you're in the market for some watercolors. And the thing I like also is that it comes with this little card here, and so I was able to just do a swatch of all the different colors there, just so you have a reference to kind of see what they look like when they're painted out. And so what I'll be doing after I get the gesso down is using some plastic packaging like this. You can use anything that's non-porous, and you know, spare packaging works great. I just keep a drawer full of packaging, and I don't usually throw it out. So you'll see that when I do this. So what we'll do is paint some of the watercolor on here, and then we'll kind of smush it down on the background once I get the gesso dry. So again, you don't need a whole lot of gesso, and you can apply it with a brush or even apply it with your fingers. I like to use a palette knife, or you can also use like a gift card if you have a spare one of those lying around, just because I think that the flatness of the palette knife and the gift card gives you an even thin application, and we don't need a thick application. We just want that barrier in between what's going to be the watercolor and the paper. And also, the thinner you apply it, the faster it dries too. I am usually impatient, and you know, you can use a heat gun to dry it, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do that today or whether I'll probably just let it dry and then come back to it in a little bit. Like I said, when you have a thin layer, it really doesn't take a super long time to dry. Sometimes if you use a heat gun, it will warp your paper, It just depends on how hot you get it. If you try to get it really hot before you use it, it will cut down on the warping. But so what I'm doing is just applying that in a thin layer, kind of in the middle of the piece. I'm sorry, I can't talk today. I have a cold and I'm kind of struggling with my voice, if you can hear that. But anyway, my plan is to create some watercolor background on this layout, sort of mimicking the colors that are in this sheet of paper right here, and then I'll probably use just some bits of pattern paper from the kit just to create a backdrop for my page, and then I might do some stitching and then layer my photo and title and embellishments on that. So I'm going to go ahead and let this dry. It shouldn't take too long, maybe half an hour. I haven't applied it very thickly, so once it's dry I will come back here and show you the rest of the progress on the layout. Okay, so my gesso is now dry and I pulled out the photo and some supplies that I'm planning on using from the kit. As you can see, this warped my paper very little. Excuse me, I just let it dry on its own since I had a very thin layer. It maybe took about 30 minutes. I didn't really time it. But what I'm going to do, or what I'm planning on doing, is using one of these acetate sheets from the main scrapbook kit, and these are, I'll show you the other ones I have. I used one of them on a project already, but they're very large, and I love the script font or the script lettering, and also the bold colors in them. Now these do have a clear plastic film on them, but I've already removed it from this one. But just a tip for you, if you're wondering what an easy way is to do that, you can try to use your fingernail, or you can use one of these paper piercers or anything small and sharp really, and kind of pull up the edge without scratching it, and then just peel the film off. So anyway, that's just a little tip there. So I'm planning on laying this out sort of like this, and I'm not quite sure what embellishments I'm going to use that yet, but these tags come in the scrapbook kit. There were 4 of them. I used one already on a different project, but I thought that it's the little things would look cute kind of layered behind this photo. And then perhaps I will take some additional pattern paper from the kit and kind of layer that on there too. But then I'm planning on kind of laying my photo right here under the title, and then my journaling will just be a little bit about the photo. This is a picture of my kids riding the carousel at the mall, and I think as parents we say no a lot to our kids, and so I think it's important just to say yes once in a while, let them have fun, buy them a Lego, ride the carousel, whatever. So I'll journal a little bit about that. I'll probably just type it out and use strip journaling. But first, we're going to get started on the watercolor packaging technique. So I'm just going to go ahead and speed this up, and I will talk you through the process, and then at the end I'll show you some close-up photos of the layout.
So to get started, I'm just going to grab a piece of plastic packaging. Like I said earlier, I keep these in a drawer. I don't throw them away, just specifically for using them for this technique. And then what you also need is a set of watercolors and a cup of water. And then I also like to keep a paper towel handy as well, just to be able to clean that plastic off and then to dab up any excess from your layout if the color went on a little bit too heavy. So like I said before, I'm playing off the colors in that pattern paper that is in the main kit. So I started with that purpley kind of violet color and went to a green and then a yellow, and next I'm going to sort of like a turquoise blue color. And excuse me, it's kind of hard to see in the video. In real life you can see it a little bit better, but rather than soaking into the paper, that watercolor is just going to sit kind of on top of that gesso on the paper, so it's not going to warp the paper any more than the gesso already warped it just a little bit. When you're overlapping colors, you kind of just want to make sure that you don't put colors next to each other that are going to create like a brown color or mix the colors too much. Now, obviously, if you have two colors like a red and a yellow that could go together and make an orange, then that would be pretty, but you just want to be mindful of that. So I let this watercolor dry probably just for about 20 minutes or so, and I've decided that I wanted to use that stamp that's one of the add-ons this month. It's designed by Jasmine Jones. It's got some really pretty florals in it. I thought it would be pretty to stamp this on the background in black over that watercolor. If you look at that watercolored pattern paper in the kit, there's some drawings or like pencil lines almost over the watercolor, and I wanted to kind of play off that look. So I'm also going to use one of the smaller flowers, and I'm just using a black pigment ink for this just because there was gesso on the background. I thought that the craft ink or the pigment ink would show up a little bit better and be able to sit on top of that gesso. My picture does not have a border on it. I just printed it as a 3x4. So I'm going to go ahead and mat it on a piece of this pattern paper from the main kit. And then I'm going to save that little strip that I cut off there of the bottom to layer up behind my tag. You'll see that in a little bit. So I'm just deciding where I want to place my photo, and before I adhere anything, I kind of just want to lay it all out and make sure that it looks good to me. So I'm going to adhere that photo onto the tag just so the phrase is kind of sticking out from the top and the side layer is peeking through a bit. And then that red striped branding strip from the bottom of the pattern paper, I just want to adhere that to the edge just to give that a little pop of color. The tape, the foam tape that I'm using is just Scotch foam tape. I usually pick that up at a local craft store. I like that you can tear it, and you don't have to mess with scissors, so that's really nice. And you'll see that I adhered all my layers together and then popped them up on the page, so the whole thing is really popped up off the background. For the acetate title, I'm just going to use some tape runner, and I try to put it behind those black letters so that you can't see it peeking through. And then I'm just going to trim that little bit off the edge that hung over. And then later on you'll see that I also put a couple staples in there from the tiny attacher just to make sure that it stays secured to the layout. I keep a little bowl of twine on my desk. That twine actually is from my grandma. She was cleaning out her basement and gave me a box full of old things from her parents and her grandparents. And so the interesting story about that twine is that came from my great-great-grandparents, and it was twine that they had collected over the years, and it's all tied together. So when you unstring it from the ball, there are like little knots that you have to cut out. It's kind of neat, and I like using it on my layouts, and it's kind of the perfect weight to adhere to or to use on tags. So the other piece that I used from that stamp was just that little squiggly line, and I think that's supposed to go with the bee in that stamp set, but I thought that it would look cute with these flowers, so I went ahead and added that. Next I'm going to add one of the chipboard tabs. This is from the main kit chipboard sheet, and it's designed by Jasmine Jones. And then I'm also going to use one of those chipboard sayings, the one that says love, and I'm going to put that on the top right of that photo. Next, and I did this off camera, I typed up my journaling. I have a couple manual typewriters that I like to use, and so I just typed that up on normal regular printer paper and then use my trimmer to trim it out into thin strips, and then I sort of lay those out on my layout just to make sure that I like the placement of them before I adhere them. Next I'm going to add a date stamp. I always do that to make sure that I can remember when the photo was taken. And then this cork adhesive sheet is from the BFF add-on. It's an embellishment add-on this month, and I knew that I wanted something up in that upper right hand corner, and so I thought that one of those banner stickers would be perfect. So I just adhered it up there and kind of hung it off the edge and trimmed it off. And then on the bottom left hand corner I'm going to use a strip of this pattern paper from the main scrapbook kit that has these cute hearts on it, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere that to the page, and then I'm going to look and see. I know I wanted to add kind of another strip of pattern paper down there, but I didn't think the blue and white matched very well, and so I end up using the back of that watercolor pattern paper. There's kind of like a subtle green dot that I thought it ended up going better with the color scheme. So trim the side off of those. Now when I'm gonna add some of those little staples. These are gold staples, and they're from American Crafts. I always keep my gold staples in my gold staplers so that I can remember what color's in there. Next, I'm going to embellish with some of the wood veneer stars that are in the main kit, and these are painted white. I really love these, and I'm glad that I have some left over because I'll definitely be using them in many projects going forward. So I'm going to go ahead and add one up there by that love word, and then I'm going to add another one in the bottom left corner of the photo. And then I'm also going to add one to the bottom right corner of the page, so you can see there I use things in odd numbers, use 3, and sort of make a triangle just so it draws your eye around the page. I'm going to add one more staple for good measure there, and I believe that completes. Nope, gotta do one more thing. Add a little piece of that heart paper to the top banner there. Sorry, I forgot I did that. Okay, so here are some close-ups of the layout. I hope you'll try this technique soon. It's really fun, and like I said, I've been enjoying getting into some more mixed media and watercolor lately. So again, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.